Sorry for the delay, but this last weekend I had an emergency trip. On Saturday, my son was supposed to fly back to college, and his flight was canceled due to the winter storm affecting the northeast part of the US. Unfortunately, there were no other flights available at our local airport for another 2 days. Luckily, there was a flight to Rochester, New York from BWI Marshall Airport about 313 miles away in Baltimore. I had roughly 9 hours to get to the airport for that flight. The first leg of the trip from Raleigh to Richmond is 183 miles. This was a better option than having to drive him all the way to school, which is 644 miles away. My local area didn't have the storm, but along the way to the first stop in Richmond, there was rain, freezing rain, and sleet. Throughout this video, I will be showing progress on the trip screen. Depending on the factors, the line will drift up or down from the original estimate. One thing I want to point out to you is that the range in the top left corner does not match the trip screen at all. This is due to the cold weather, rain, snow, and driving speed. My normal 100% full is 290 miles. This part of the trip is estimated to be about 183 miles, with 16% when I get to the first stop. On the start of this leg, the trip screen showed me arriving at the supercharger with 18% remaining. In actuality, I arrived with 8%, which indicates a total full pack range of 199 miles. The loss of 91 miles had a lot to do with the dropping temperature, rain, and sleet. Here is some video of driving through the city of Richmond. I arrived at the supercharger just north of Richmond in the town of Glen Allen, with 21 miles remaining. This was a large site with 20 V2 superchargers. Sorry for the lack of video, I wasn't planning on doing this as an episode. There are numerous restaurants in the area, including a Panera, Pizza Shop, Tropical Smoothie, Chili's, Thai, O'Charlie's, McDonald's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Chipotle, Q Barbecue, Five Guys, and more. We had 30 minutes to eat. This time lapse shows how much the weather changed at the 30-minute charging session. I charged from 8% up to 92%. I unplugged when we got back to the car. Anything more than 70% was plenty to get to the next stop. From the receipt, you can see I spent $19.20 for 60 kilowatt hours. The second leg of the trip from Richmond to Baltimore is 130 miles. You can actually see blue sky now. Going through Northern Virginia was smooth. Normally this can be a highly congested area, but luckily the threat of stormy weather and being a Saturday helped. At this point, I'm going through Fairfax County and entering Arlington. Here you can see me going through the center of Washington, D.C. On the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, I drove towards BWI Airport. I did much better than expected on this part of the trip. I got there with 37% remaining instead of the original 30%. This is mostly due to a lot of the distance was driven below 60 miles per hour. Pulling into the hourly parking garage, all 4 of the charging stations were full. I expected that, so I wasn't disappointed. There must have been at least a dozen Teslas parked in the first 2 rows. I got to the airport around 7 p.m. with plenty of time to check my son in, go through security, and have dinner before the flight. The flight finally boarded, and I left the airport. I booked a hotel at 10 p.m. and luckily there were 2 within 16 miles that had charging. One with 4 Tesla destination chargers and 2 J1772 spots, and the other hotel right next to it with another 4 Tesla destination chargers and 2 J1772 spots. This provided 16 kilowatts, which was more than enough to fill up the car overnight. The destination charger was free and got me from 30% up to 100%. What a long day. Now for some rest. I'll see you in a few hours. It was a lot warmer when I woke up the next morning on Sunday. The temp started at 28 degrees Fahrenheit and got up to 51 degrees Fahrenheit at the end of the trip. As you can see here, the car originally wanted to stop in Petersburg, Virginia at the supercharger, about 176 miles away. Since I had a decent amount of charge at 30%, I decided to go to the next one in Halifax, North Carolina, which was 232 miles away. At the start, the Tesla trip screen estimated about 12% remaining when I get to the supercharger. I wanted to see how close I could get to zero, so I increased my speed with a goal of getting there with about 5% range left. So as you can see, the charts went from 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 and then finally to 4%. So I had about 11 miles left, which is the lowest I've ever gone on a long distance trip. Notice that the chart goes from green to yellow to red as the percentage drops, alerting you to the fact that it's pretty low at the destination. So I reached the Oasis travel stop. By the way, this is a 12-stall V3 supercharger location and was fairly busy. Many of the stations were full. As soon as I stopped, this warning came up, so I started charging. Here are the stats for this part of the trip. 232 miles, which took 3 hours and 46 minutes, and 272 watt-hours per mile, and I averaged 62 miles per hour. This location was really nice. There was a dog walk area with bags and trash for pet waste. There were also garbage cans and windshield washing stations between the chargers. Inside the center is a big convenience store with a Dunkin' Donuts restaurant. Since my next stop is only 84 miles, I only filled up to 50%, which took 17 minutes. So compared to my drive yesterday, the difference is fairly big. A full pack charge would have gone 242 miles, so about 22% better the next day in clear and warmer weather. And that's even with a higher average speed. In addition, to the right, there were 2 ChargePoint CCS CHAdeMO stations rated at a surprisingly low 62.5 kilowatts. Most of the Electrify America in this area are 150 or 350 kilowatts. PlugShare mentions that one of these is currently broken and that the max speed was only 41.6 kilowatts. Here is the Tesla receipt page, and it shows that it costs $10.56 for 33 kilowatt hours at 32 cents a kilowatt hour. This is the same price per kilowatt hour as the previous stop on Saturday. Every spot was full when I finished charging, and there were 2 Teslas waiting for me when I left. The last part of the return trip is shown here. The remaining 84 miles went along with no issues. The original estimate was arriving with 15%. In reality, this was super close. I ended up at 16%. The main reason I stuck close to the number is that I did the speed limit for most of the way back. I made it back home, and now I'm backing up into my driveway. Here are the stats for this leg of the trip. It was 84 miles, 23 kilowatt hours used at a rate of 268 watt hours per mile. And here's what the car looks like after going through the storm on Saturday. Lots of ice and snow in a slushy mess. I must say that the trip went fine, no major delays, and I made it back safely. Now, an hour later, it's nice and clean. Well, that wraps up my unexpected trip to Baltimore this weekend. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.